Something interesting is happening right now during this quiet stretch of the off-season, and even though things might seem calm on the surface, there are still some big decisions that could shape this roster before training camp gets underway. The team has some flexibility, there are a few intriguing veteran options still available, and the front office has the opportunity to make this roster even stronger if the right move presents itself. The question is whether they stay patient or make one more move that could have a bigger impact than people expect. If you're enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like button and drop a comment below with "Go Hawks." Let's see how many true Seahawks fans are watching today. The 6-week stretch between mandatory minicamp and the start of training camp has created a fascinating window for the Seattle Seahawks front office, and one topic is starting to stand out above the rest: whether Seattle should use part of its available salary cap space to strengthen specific areas of the roster before players return for camp. According to the discussion, the Seahawks currently have approximately $25.48 million in available cap space, giving the organization flexibility if it decides to pursue outside help or potentially explore trade opportunities. The focus of the conversation centers on several veteran free agents who could help Seattle in different ways, and perhaps the most debated name is Joey Bosa. The argument is not that Bosa remains the dominant force he once was earlier in his career. Instead, the discussion revolves around whether he could still provide value as part of a rotation. Seattle's edge room has already experienced changes, including the departure of Boy Mayfield and the additions of players such as Dante Fowler Jr., while Derek Hall received an extension. The possibility was raised that Jared Ivey could see increased usage in a bigger defensive end role inside, potentially creating additional opportunities on the edge. In that scenario, Bosa becomes an interesting name because of his ability to contribute in passing situations, even if he is no longer viewed as the player he was at his peak. At the same time, there is acknowledgement that his fit may not be perfect for every situation within Mike Macdonald's defensive approach, making him more of a player worth evaluating rather than an obvious target. Another area generating discussion is offensive tackle depth. While many expected conversations during this period to focus on pass rushers, defensive backs, or perhaps another skill position player, developments on the offensive line have changed the conversation. Mike Macdonald reportedly indicated that Josh Jones is not currently practicing, and Seattle responded by signing Bobby Hart. That move immediately raised questions about depth and contingency planning along the offensive line. The discussion makes it clear that there is appreciation for what Josh Jones provided when called upon previously, but there is also recognition that teams must prepare for every scenario heading into a long NFL season. That brings Cam Robinson into the picture. The case for Robinson is not based on bringing him in as an unquestioned starter. In fact, concerns were openly expressed about penalties, pass protection consistency, and overall performance if he were expected to hold down a starting role. Instead, the argument centers on competition and insurance. If Seattle is not fully comfortable with its current backup tackle situation, Robinson could potentially be added on a team-friendly contract and compete throughout training camp. The goal would not be to hand him a job, but rather to create competition and identify the strongest option available. There is also mention of Mason Richmond generating positive buzz during OTA practices, further emphasizing that the battle for depth could become one of the most interesting stories to watch once training camp begins. The importance of tackle depth was highlighted by referencing how quickly injuries can reshape an offensive line. Seattle has a highly regarded right tackle in Abe Lucas, but the discussion emphasizes that every NFL team must prepare for unexpected absences. The league repeatedly demonstrates how important reliable depth becomes over the course of a season, and the Seahawks are no exception. Perhaps the most passionate argument presented involves Jadeveon Clowney. Among all the free agent names discussed, Clowney appears to be viewed as one of the strongest potential fits. The reasoning is straightforward. He is described as a player who remains productive as a pass rusher while also maintaining strong run defensibility. His reported production of 8.5 sacks in 13 games is pointed to as evidence that he can still impact games at a high level. Beyond statistics, the discussion highlights his familiarity with Seattle, the organization, and the environment surrounding the team. An additional factor making Clowney intriguing is his previous connection with Mike Macdonald during their time together in Baltimore. That familiarity could reduce the adjustment period and make him an easier addition to the defensive rotation. Financially, projections mentioned in the discussion suggest a range of roughly $5 million to $7 million per year, a number that would appear manageable given Seattle's current cap situation. Rather than expecting him to carry the defense, the vision is for Clowney to become another experienced contributor within a veteran-heavy edge group that already includes players such as DeMarcus Lawrence, Dante Fowler Jr., and Uchenna Nwosu. The conversation also acknowledges that Seattle may not be considered the favorite to land Clowney. Other teams could have greater immediate needs, potentially making them more aggressive in pursuing him. Still, the possibility remains very much alive, and it is a situation worth monitoring as training camp approaches. Another veteran defender generating interest is Cam Jordan. What makes Jordan's case particularly compelling is the belief that he experienced a resurgence after concerns that age had finally begun to catch up with him. According to the discussion, Jordan showed renewed effectiveness, including strong run defense and a notable pass-rushing contribution that resulted in 10.5 sacks. That production naturally sparks attention because it would have represented a major boost for Seattle's defensive front. The challenge, however, is that New Orleans reportedly remains interested in bringing Jordan back. Because of his long history with the Saints and his connection to the city, Seattle would need a convincing pitch. One possibility discussed is the opportunity to compete for a championship at the end of his career. Whether that would be enough to persuade him remains uncertain, but the idea itself demonstrates how Seattle could attempt to position itself if it chooses to pursue veteran additions before the season begins. The final name drawing attention is Ifeatu Melifonwu. Unlike some of the more recognizable veterans discussed earlier, Melifonwu represents a different type of opportunity. Reports referenced in the discussion indicate that Seattle has already brought him in for evaluation, suggesting the organization has at least explored the possibility of a future move. The belief is that he may not sign immediately and could instead become a player to watch as training camp approaches, or if injuries create new roster needs. What makes Melifonwu especially intriguing is his versatility. Described as a bigger defensive back with experience at both safety and cornerback, he appears to fit the type of flexible defensive profile that Seattle values. The ability to move around the formation and contribute in multiple roles could make him an attractive option if the Seahawks decide additional secondary depth is necessary before the regular season arrives. As training camp continues to get closer, the central question remains simple. Should Seattle use its available cap space now, or should it remain patient and preserve flexibility for opportunities that may emerge later? With names like Joey Bosa, Cam Robinson, Jadeveon Clowney, Cam Jordan, and Ifeatu Melifonwu all entering the conversation, the coming weeks could quietly become one of the most important roster-building periods of the offseason. One of the most interesting aspects of this entire discussion is that none of these potential additions are being presented as desperate moves. That is what separates Seattle's current situation from many other teams around the league. The Seahawks are not being forced into a major roster overhaul. Instead, they are operating from a position where they can evaluate opportunities and determine whether a veteran addition genuinely improves the team. That becomes especially important when looking at the defensive front. The conversation repeatedly returns to the reality that Seattle already has talent in place. The question is whether adding another experienced player could raise the floor of the unit while also protecting the team from injuries throughout the season. When names like Jadeveon Clowney, Joey Bosa, and Cam Jordan are discussed, the focus is not on finding a savior. The focus is on finding another contributor who can fit into a rotation and make life more difficult for opposing offenses. The Clowney discussion remains particularly compelling because it combines production, familiarity, and scheme fit. The belief expressed is that his ability to impact both the run and pass game makes him valuable in a defense that asks players to be complete contributors rather than specialists. While some veterans become one-dimensional later in their careers, the argument here is that Clowney still offers enough versatility to justify serious consideration. His previous experience with Mike Macdonald only strengthens that case. At the same time, Seattle's front office must weigh every possible outcome. If Clowney chooses another destination, there are still alternative paths available. Bosa presents upside as a situational pass rusher. Jordan offers veteran leadership and proven production. The Seahawks do not appear locked into a single option, which gives them flexibility as the market develops closer to training camp. The offensive line situation deserves equal attention because depth can become a season-defining issue. The discussion around Cam Robinson is less about excitement and more about practicality. Every organization hopes its starting tackles stay healthy for an entire season, but history shows that relying on perfect health is a dangerous strategy. Competition creates better outcomes, and adding another experienced option could allow Seattle to enter training camp with more confidence in its contingency plans. What makes this particularly noteworthy is that the Seahawks do not appear interested in making moves simply to make headlines. The logic presented throughout the discussion revolves around value. If a player can be signed at the right price and improve roster depth, Seattle should consider it. If not, the team can comfortably move forward with the players already in the building. That patience may ultimately be one of the franchise's greatest strengths during this portion of the offseason. The secondary conversation surrounding Ifeatu Melifonwu also reveals something important about the way Seattle appears to be evaluating talent. Versatility continues to matter. A defensive back who can handle multiple responsibilities gives coaches additional flexibility when constructing weekly game plans. The fact that Seattle reportedly brought him in for evaluation suggests the organization is continuously searching for players who fit its vision, rather than simply chasing the biggest available names. Another key takeaway is how proactive the Seahawks seem to be. The discussion references the organization doing its homework well before a decision becomes necessary. Whether it is bringing in veterans for workouts, evaluating medical situations, or monitoring the market for potential bargains, Seattle appears determined to be prepared if an opportunity presents itself. That approach could become extremely valuable once training camp begins. Every year, injuries change plans across the NFL. Every year, unexpected roster battles emerge. Every year, teams discover strengths and weaknesses that were not obvious during spring practices. By identifying possible targets now, the Seahawks position themselves to act quickly later if circumstances demand it. For now, the roster remains largely intact, but the conversation makes one thing clear: Seattle still has options. Whether the answer is adding another edge defender, strengthening tackle depth, or bringing in a versatile defensive back, the front office has the financial flexibility to make a move if it believes the opportunity is worthwhile. The coming weeks may look quiet from the outside, but they could prove critical in shaping the roster that eventually takes the field when the regular season arrives. As always, make sure you're subscribed, leave a like on the video, and don't miss any Seahawks updates. If any of these potential targets end up signing with Seattle, there will be plenty to discuss. And when you're done here, click on the video appearing on your screen right now for more Seahawks coverage. The latest Seahawks news and developments are the kind of stories you'll want to follow closely, and you'll find those updates first right here.